Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Filmmaker and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Jose Antonio Vargas has spent much of his career documenting and analyzing the experiences people encounter when dealing with race in America. But now he's documenting his own experiences in his new book, Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. And my friend Jose Antonio Vargas joins me now. Hello, friend. I wish you were here.
Yeah, me too. I'm in San Francisco for this book tour.
But I know you're on book tour, and it's a great book, by the way, and I really highly recommend people read it. I love the fact that you subtitled it Notes of an Undocumented Citizen. Why did you make that choice? Because it's also underlined, citizen.
It's also underlined.
Yes.
Well, I'm a fan of James Baldwin, so it's kind of a tip to Notes of a Native Son. But I think in terms of the word citizen, that was intentional on my part, because I think the conversation is, what does it mean to be a citizen of this country? Now, I'm not a citizen because I was not born here, and legally I'm not a citizen, but I would argue that being a citizen is participating and contributing, and so that's the conversation that I was kind of hoping to start.
Yeah, and you and I had a great conversation about this book not too long ago in Brooklyn, and I asked you to read a passage which is probably my favorite passage in the book because it's so poignant as to what the separation of a mother and child really feels like. And I'm going to read a little bit of it now, and it's from the chapter called Gamblers. And it says, after handing me a brown jacket with a Made in the USA label on its collar, a Christmas gift from her parents in California, the grandparents I would soon be living with, Mama said matter-of-factly, and I'm going to probably mangle this, Baka malaming dun, it might be cold there. It was the last thing I remember her saying. That parting from your mom is so poignant and searing in the book, and I think people forget that there's a lot of pain involved in a parent separating from their child and a child being separated in this way.
That's actually the reason why I ended up writing the book the way that I did, right? I didn't want to write about politics and policy. I wanted to write about the psychology of all of this. Like, what does it mean to be separated from your family? In my case, my mom for 25 years. This morning, when I got up this morning here in San Francisco, I was just reading the New York Times report about 3,800 kids that are being locked up in a tent in South Texas. And the question for me is, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Right? Like, we're locking kids up in tents because why again? Why are we locking them up? Why are they separated from their parents? And so we talk so much about this issue in such a partisan way that I think, for me at least, as you know, traveling across the country, I think lost kind of the mental health part of all of this. Like, what is the emotional toll and the cost that's happening, not only to the parents, right, but to the kids.
Yeah.
I'm a 37-year-old man, and like being put in an airport and saying goodbye to my mom was something that I did not think would haunt me as a 37-year-old.
Yeah, and very
man,
quickly,
but it's been traumatic in that way.
Yeah, and I wish we had more time, but I want to also, we talk about the 11 million undocumented people living in America, but we don't also talk about all the many other people who are helping them in their daily lives. They're almost sort of conspiracy of everyone working together to make your life and the lives of other undocumented people work.
Absolutely, and actually, I made a real point of doing that in the book. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from this region, and I would not have been able to lie and pass and hide in America without all of those people helping me out. And that's actually how I structured the book: lying, passing, and hiding, which is the condition that undocumented people find ourselves in. But we can't be the only one doing that alone, right? There are employers, co-workers, classmates, friends who will let us do that. It is, in a way, a conspiracy.
Yeah, and it's one of love. You talk about these two families, your white
Absolutely.
American family and your family back in the Philippines. It's a fantastic book. I recommend everyone read it. It's called Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen by Jose Antonio Vargas, our friend of the show. Have a happy and safe book tour, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Joy. I really appreciate it.
It is Monday, the 1st of October of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays, folks. That's right, it's been another one of those weekends, huh? Well, it's great to hear that this investigation is in full swing. And by full swing, I mean that if you're coming up to bunt, oh yeah, we'll just put it right here in front of the plate and that's all we're going to do. We're not going to swing for the fences. Oh, no way. Single? Psh, it's too much. Too much. Yeah, talk about hamstrung. I would say don't say anything about it. Give it to that rogue New York office that the FBI has and let them do it. And what they will do is go out there and intimidate anybody who dares say anything against, Kavanaugh and by extension, Herr Führer. Oh, did you know that he falls in love so easily? I had no idea. All it takes is a love letter or two, and next thing you know, he's in love. And he admitted that to a bunch of his lizard brain people, and they didn't flinch. I don't know. It seems to go against the grain of the image that he is trying to promote. But it works for them, and I ought to know. Yeah, I ought to know. Well, today, sadly, is the 1-year anniversary of the Las Vegas shooting. Wow. It seems like more than a year, but I know it's only a year. And as a reminder, my younger brother was there in the kill zone, as they called it. And he got out safe with some other people, and he does run the Route 91 support group, and so he's had some things to process. I might also remind folks that my brother and I have some political differences. In fact, I think the proper term for his position is that he's a Trump bro, in the most literal sense. He is my Trump bro. And so we have recently found a balance in which to be able to maintain a relationship, and that balance is that we just don't talk politics, because he thinks he's right, and I know I'm right, because I'm the older brother. Jesus, give me a break. And that's part of my my processing too, is that I wasn't there for my younger brother, probably when he needed an older brother in the most formative part of his formative years. And who did he have? Yeah, his peers. And I will say that his peers were a bunch of dimwits. Okay? And I'm not just saying that as an older brother, I'm saying it as a fact. Okay, well, enough of that, other than to say that the whole idea of this mass shooting gets really close to home when there's a family member involved. And it seems that if you crunch the numbers, a lot of us are going to have lesser and lesser degrees of separation with survivors and victims of these mass killings. Wow. Maybe that's a feature, not a bug. Maybe they want us in fear. How else can they get what they want? And one thing that we need to fear, probably the most important thing, is the undocumented, because they're all crooks and rapists. And I don't know. I would say that we ought to build, maybe some walls around these elite all-boys prep schools. Keep all the rapists and drunks in. God. Wreaking havoc on the countryside? Eek. Well, Jose Antonio Vargas, at the top there, discussed his life as an undocumented citizen. And I think that is an apt term because what is a citizen? One who pretty much has assimilated, you would think. Antonio Vargas's hiding and the people who help him, that is very familiar. Because what is a citizen, again? One who's absolutely assimilated. How do you turn your back on a friend? I don't know. We're all here just for a job. What's on the rest of the menu here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays? Well, Lindsey Graham wants to investigate the Senate Democrats on the Judiciary Committee instead of Kavanaugh's perjury, because that was the plan all along. Blame the Democrats. Yeah. The Democrats are the ones that misused and abused Dr. Ford, not Kavanaugh. Not us. Oh, no, not us. They're ghouls. They're such ghouls. Speaking of ghouls, a black lawmaker has to quit the Vermont legislature because she's citing online racial abuse. Vermont. Green Mountain. And the White House is fighting to prevent the deposition of Wilbur Ross over the census citizenship question. Yeah, and they're fighting California over net neutrality too. Yeah, F states' rights, I guess. After the break, we move to the chef's table where another Lindsey Graham story. Well, Lindsey Graham's tone deafness to rape victims is nothing new. He has consistently voted against the Violence Against Women Act. And while you are not looking, the Trump administration has quietly moved hundreds of migrant kids to tent gulags along the border. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Are hot and heavy in the voting season right now, and if you go to our homepage at netrootsradio.com, Tom is placed in the scroll right there as you open up the page and is loaded some links in which you can find out if you are registered to vote, and also so that you can register to vote. Hurry up. I mean, we're October and elections are in November. Come on. All right, so if you then scroll to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice to the rightish of the page the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Do check out her shows on the weekends. She is at the table with Kelly Lincoln on Saturdays, 3 p.m. on the West Coast, 6 p.m. on the East Coast. And then later on, she teams up with Ricky, and they command the Round Table Roundhouse Power Hour at 9 p.m. on the West Coast, midnight on the East Coast. So do check that out. Take a gander to the leftish of the page at our homepage at netrootsradio.com from the chat room link, and you will then notice the contribute button. And do become a Patreon of Netroots Radio. We are Resistance Radio, and we pay our bills, and we are unable to do it without you. Thank you for your generosity. Follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. You can check us out on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime. I'm there as Justice Putnam. How easy is that? Then it gets complicated because if you want to follow us on Twitter, you got to go to @CookbookWest. But you know and I know that if you just start typing in West Coast Cookbook, Twitter will just show you where to go, @CookbookWest. We are West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy on Facebook, and I think I'm on Tumblr. I don't know. I don't go to Tumblr that much. And you can get podcasts of the show by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, iTunes, YouTube, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Well. Lindsey Graham. I don't know what's up with that guy, but he has a way about him that seems to be I don't know, in my book, kind of loathsome, and that loathsomeness has everything to do with his, I don't know, political henchman persona, we'll say. Because I don't know, like I said, what's up with Lindsey Graham? Oh, this first article then about Lindsey Graham is out of Share Blue Media by Tommy Christopher. Now, Lindsey Graham has been steadfast as an attack dog for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and said he doesn't think the FBI should investigate whether Kavanaugh lied under oath, and that Senate Democrats are the ones who should be investigated instead. Well, he sat down with Stephanopoulos, and Stephanopoulos asked Graham about reports that the FBI's newly reopened background investigation into Kavanaugh won't include interviews with witnesses who remember seeing Kavanaugh frequently drinking to excess. Well, of course, they don't want a full investigation. And this 5-page report by the prosecutor Mitchell out of Maricopa County, the county that has the worst record of taking not just rape convictions, but even getting a rape case to trial. The worst in the nation, or one of the worst. Let her ask the questions of only one side, and let her say, "Oh yeah, there's not enough here. She's really not being truthful. I don't have the evidence to back up her claims." Well, they're not going to let us have the evidence now, will they? On the other hand, I cannot imagine an FBI agent seeing and sniffing out a crime that's taken place, not trying to figure out the extent of that crime. It's hard for me to fathom. An FBI agent? Yikes. So, of course, Lindsey says that it's not what Kavanaugh lied about. And, of course, Kavanaugh lied about not just drinking, okay? He's lied about his finances, too. And actually what might keep him off of the Supreme Court, not that he lied about his finances and, where he got his money and, how he got his debts paid off so quickly. Not that he's like probably, high-performing drunk right now, which is still, bothersome. He's not going to be kept off the court because he might have raped someone or a bunch of people even. But he could be kept off the court because he's not the quiet, studious, keep it inside, the proper judicial temperament, as they say. These other things, no, but the way he looks, I got to tell you, it's bad enough. And I got to tell you, do you think that guy's really a happy drunk? No, he's the kind of person you move away from when he gets a little bit drunker. Especially as he gets older. I've seen this before. So Graham's out there making the rounds saying that, questioning these other people that might support the argument and, that Dr. Ford and others have put forth, might actually prove out his guilt. And we really need this guy. It's got to be this guy on the Supreme Court. And I still don't get it. The Federalist Society grooms all sorts of people for exactly this position. You think they'd have somebody else, but then I guess the only difference between all of those and Kavanaugh is that he's so craven. He's such a, and I'm sorry, I know it's Monday and it's still morning in a lot of places, but I'm not making an opinion here. This is not one reporter's opinion. This is an actual fact. He is a rat fucker. They need this rat fucker on the Supreme Court because he's the only one in all of the Federalist Society, apparently, that will give Trump a pass. That Trump is above the law. Kay Wicker of Think Progress brings us this next offering here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Representative Kia Morris, a Democrat of Vermont, says that martyrdom is too high a price for public service. It's almost like she is a victim of terror, isn't it? Now, Morris, a black lawmaker who has served in the Vermont's House since 2014, announced this week she is resigning, citing rampant racist cyber attacks. She made the announcement to her constituents in the town of Bennington a little over a month after withdrawing her candidacy for re-election. Morris and her husband, James Lawden, who have been working with local authorities for over 2 years, to no avail. Fancy that. In hopes to end the abuse and threats she claims she and her family receive on social media. Now, she said the abuses range from derogatory remarks such as calling her mixed-race son a mongrel to outright physical threats. Now, the family has kept a close record of everything they've endured, including an incident in which swastikas were spray-painted on trees near their home. Well, I don't know. Is that really a threat to a black lawmaker in Vermont? Maybe it's a threat to any black person anywhere in America, you would think. It was my intention to continue service until completion of the current term, which ends in January of 2019. However, this time has proven to be one of significant challenges for my family, she had wrote on social media. Several competing factors motivated Morris's final decision. Her husband has just begun recovery following open heart surgery just this month. And she told CNN that she no longer wants to cope with the continued harassment, a legal battle to try to find justice, and dealing with the investigation. 2 years. Vermont cops have slow-walked this investigation that a black lawmaker has brought up. 2 years. I don't know. She and her family will press forward with an investigation into the online abuse, although they have not been successful in producing enough evidence to press charges so far. And let's see. Online harassment is hardly a rare occurrence, but women of color find they are particularly vulnerable to this form of bigotry. Moore says that she is no longer willing to subject herself to this form of martyrdom in the name of public service. I need to press the conversation that public service by people of color and other marginalized groups does not have to require martyrdom, she said. Yeah, I know, it's the ballot or the bullet. And the bullet is scaring a person who is living with the idea of the ballot. She continues, the risk and the dangers are there. It is part of our national climate. That does not make it acceptable. It should not have to be the norm. It cannot be a norm if we are truly to transform our country. West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Bistro Cafe is another article out of Think Progress, this time by Mark Hand. Now, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross had that census question added about citizenship in the 2020 census in a move that is sure to suppress immigrant participation. And once again, a reminder, you do not want to suppress participation in the census. I would proffer, and it's not just this reporter's opinion, but I would proffer that it is quite un-American to do so. The Trump administration is trying to prevent Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross from giving a deposition explaining his decision to add a citizenship status question to the 2020 U.S. Census. Opponents of adding the citizenship question contend it would suppress participation of immigrants that could lead to undercounting some 24 million people. And maybe the reason they want to be undercounted is because then it might be harder to keep track of them when they're in tent gulags, not only along the border but throughout the interior of the United States of America, in this reporter's opinion. The scheme is being challenged in federal lawsuits brought by various state attorneys general, along with suppressing participation in the census. The attorneys general contend the question about citizenship status would disproportionately affect immigrant communities by impacting the distribution of billions in federal funds. Well, if all these billions of federal funds are going to tribute to Vlad, you can't be tying it up, giving it to, counting people that you really don't want in this country to begin with. And as soon as we get them out of here, the better. And if we're not really getting them out of here physically, within the confines of what we call the United States of America, we'll make these, citizenship-free zones where these people can be held and, tortured as God intended. In this reporter's opinion, of course. Attorneys at the Justice Department are representing the administration in several lawsuits around the country over the question. And the Justice Department on Friday requested the federal judge block Ross's deposition pending review by the U.S. Supreme Court, according to the motion obtained by Politico. Ross oversees the Census Bureau as head of the Commerce Department. Well, what about this guy's Cyprus Bank and all the money laundering there? You'd think that would preclude him from even being Commerce Secretary. And the Justice Department is also seeking to block the deposition of Justice Department official John Gore over the addition of the citizenship question to the census. Now, what the Trump administration is requesting is not just alarming, it is illegal. California Attorney General Xavier Becerra said, this is clearly an attempt to bully and discourage our immigrant communities from participating in the 2020 census count. And it's a feature, not a bug, I might add. And that's not an opinion in this reporter's opinion. All right, let's get to our break. And when we come back, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Deal Gone Bad. A week or so before White Boy Rick hit screens across the country, some news outlets were prompted to do pieces on an outrage that isn't top of mind for most people. Federal informants, sometimes juveniles, abandoned by the agencies they've helped and left languishing in prison. Unfortunately, moral outrage doesn't a great movie make. White Boy Rick is set in dystopian Detroit at about the time of the crack epidemic of the 80s, and the story is mostly a biopic of the teenaged Rick and his black market weapons-dealing dad, Richard. Doing business primarily with drug dealers eventually puts young Rick in a position of having himself and his family in legal jeopardy, which leads to cooperating with authorities, which eventually leads to Rick's incarceration. White Boy Rick is ambitious. It's a true crime drama, it's a character study, and it's social commentary, all crammed into less than 2 hours. Given the first of these facets, Matthew McConaughey was probably the first name on casting's list, and he does a fine job. But despite the billing, he's in a supporting role. Newcomer Richie Merritt as young Rick is a more questionable call as the lead. He's either meticulously worked with his character to portray a wooden, inarticulate, out-of-his-league adolescent, or he actually is one as an actor. Time will tell. Bruce Dern and Piper Laurie as Rick's grandparents are as close as the movie gets to comic relief. Belle Powley stands out as Rick's junkie sister. It's the social commentary dimension which gets short shrift here and begs the question of whether the whole thing would have been better as a documentary. The financial and human costs of the situations like that portrayed in White Boy Rick deserve more attention than this project provides. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Steve Mirsky.
The Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institutet has today decided to award the 2018 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine jointly to James P. Allison and Tasuku Honjo for their discovery of cancer therapy by inhibition of negative immune regulation.
Thomas Perelman, Secretary of the Nobel Assembly, shortly after 5:30 this morning Eastern Time.
James P. Allison was born in Alice in Texas in the United States. He performed his prize-winning studies at University of California, Berkeley, and at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. He is now active at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. Tasuku Honjo was born in Kyoto, in Japan. He performed his prize-winning studies at Kyoto University, where he's still active.
Karolinska Institute immunologist Klaus Scherer, a member of the Nobel Committee, explained the significance of the work of the new Nobel laureates.
Allison's and Honjo's discoveries have added a new pillar in cancer therapy. It represents a completely new principle because, unlike the previous strategies, it is not based on targeting the cancer cells, but rather the brakes, the checkpoints of the host immune system. The seminal discoveries by the two laureates constitute a paradigmatic shift and a landmark in the fight against cancer.
For an in-depth listen about the 2018 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, look for the Scientific American Science Talk podcast later today. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Steve Mirsky.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After a storm or disaster, it's important to eat only safe food. Throw away perishables like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and leftovers stored above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours or more. Throw away food with an unusual odor, color, or texture. Throw away food that may have come in contact with floodwater, including food in swollen, punctured, and damaged cans. When in doubt, throw it out.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
You can help stop the Trump agenda in its tracks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. And on November 6th, vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
Take a guess. How many people in Florida can't vote because of a felony conviction? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In Florida, a person with a felony cannot vote after his or her conviction unless that right is reinstated specifically by the governor. This is also the case in Iowa, Kentucky, and Virginia. Nationwide, some 6 million people are disenfranchised because of these voting restrictions. In Florida alone, 1.4 million people, 10% of the state's adult population, can't vote because of a felony conviction, no matter how long ago or how minor. This November, there's a proposed amendment to the state constitution on the ballot, question 4, that would allow a person convicted of a felony to vote after successfully completing all the terms of a criminal sentence, including parole or probation. Passage is not guaranteed. It will take 60% of the vote in Florida for this provision to pass. And this is a modest proposal. It excludes classes of former prisoners from its coverage, which it shouldn't. Why would we ever want to keep someone who has fully paid the price for his or her crime and wants to re-engage in civic participation by voting from doing so? Really? Give me one legitimate reason. The silence is deafening. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on Monday, October 1st, 2018. I'm Mark Boulanger. When it comes to climate change, the international labor movement has 2 major demands. First, that the rise in global temperature be kept to under 2% Celsius, as stipulated by the Paris Agreement of 2015. And second, that there be a just transition to greener, sustainable economies for workers. Coordinating labor's global campaign on climate change is the International Trade Union Confederation. The ITUC is the body which represents national labor centers, such as the Ghana Trade Union Congress at the world level. Sharon Burrow is the ITUC's General Secretary.
The climate crisis and the impact on our industries and jobs is not just a national problem, it's a global problem. And it is the biggest systemic transformation of all sectors that we will face. Business as usual is a recipe for disaster. We have driven a union campaign for climate action and just transition under a simple banner. There are no jobs on a dead planet. With record temperatures around the world, even Europe has experienced a summer with historic levels of heat, plus fires and floods that you've seen in other parts of the world. There is growing alarm amongst people because of this, but there's still a lack of ambition from our national governments. Rather than heading for under 2 degrees, we are currently heading towards 4. And at 4 degrees, the planet is simply uninsurable. If you want to look at an economic meter, it's simply uninsurable. At 3 degrees, the assets of working people are not affordable in terms of our people being able to insure them. And of course, when lives and livelihoods are already on the front lines, being lost to extreme weather events in too many parts of the world, we are simply running out of time. So the union has a response. We have a response. We actually have spoken with one voices. I've been privileged to have union negotiators on a team, and collectively they have gone to their governments with the same message. With the settlement of the Paris Climate Agreement, the ITUC, with the other regional federations, within partnership with our national centres and our global union federations or industrial structures, we have taken up these questions. We got the commitment in the Paris Agreement to just transition. And we established, after rising from Paris, a Just Transition Centre, and Samantha Smith, who's working with many of the unions, is here, our director from the centre, and we're very proud of the work that they are doing. What we aim to do is make sure Labor's at the table. If you want to move forward, you've got to move forward with us. We're the people who can cut the deals, bring the workers behind us, make sure the skills are there, look after the demands around pensions, bargain for the guarantees, and indeed demand the investment in the communities that will establish an economic base of opportunity and hope. So we are central to this, and that's our message, and it's the work in partnership that our Just Transition does with unions and communities around the world. We have 3 ambitions, and they haven't changed, that governments raise their ambition. We simply can't stabilise the planet at 2 degrees or less if we maintain a business-as-usual approach. That global financing for mitigation and adaptation be realised. Neither just development or a sustainable planet will be attained without a solidarity that ensures finance is available for the infrastructure, the services, the just transition measures available for poorer communities, governments, nations, as well as for our own. And of course that, in that light, that measures for just transition be included in all national development plans. It's not good enough that our governments actually say that, they have targets. We know the targets won't be realised unless we have a plan where unions are at the table and you can explain it to people and provide the hope that that brings.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said Friday his country won't cave in to American pressure in an ongoing trade war. Here he was speaking through an interpreter.
China will not be blackmailed or yield to pressure.
While Yi's defense of Chinese national interests mirrored President Trump's own embrace of a doctrine of American patriotism earlier in the week, China's top diplomat took pains to paint his country as an enthusiastic member of the global community.
In the face of new developments and severe challenges, China will keep to its commitment and remain a champion of multilateralism.
As evidence of that, Yi cited Beijing's ongoing support of the Paris Agreement on climate change and the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, both of which President Trump has withdrawn from over the past year. And while Yi said multilateralism is not about making empty rhetoric, his remarks featured many of the same buzzwords recycled year after year by Chinese communist officials. Yi spoke of embracing win-win cooperation over a winner-takes-all mentality. He also said China's ongoing Belt and Road Initiative, a massive foreign policy and infrastructure project that spans Asia, the Middle East, and China, was, quote, about pursuing common prosperity through greater complementarity among participating countries. While experts have begun to criticize the Belt and Road Initiative as a means of luring poor and underdeveloped countries into economic dependence on China, a process that can mean handing over key resources or land, Yi said the program is actually a public good that China offers the world. And with neither the U.S. nor China showing appetite for ending a trade war or ceding ground on core national interests, the only thing that seemed to separate them this week was their rhetoric. Regardless of the underlying facts, merely talking a good game on multilateralism at the United Nations will usually earn cheers, not laughs. Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. Well, folks, we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 51 degrees. We're going to be a bit cooler than we were yesterday and over the weekend. We were in the mid to low 70s over the weekend. And we did have some rain yesterday. And right now as I speak, we have rain with showers continuing throughout the day and throughout the night. Expected to get, oh my gosh, about an inch. So there you go. It won't be steady. It'll be somewhat intermittent. Winds right now are a negligible 1 mile per hour out of the south, and they will remain light and variable throughout the day and the night, picking up tomorrow when they shift out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. We should have a high tomorrow of 74 with a lesser chance of precipitation, but there are storms in the area. So we'll remain cloudy throughout the day and night, and we'll have an overnight low of 53 degrees. Well. So let's see. Ragweed pollen remains high. That air quality index is in the good range at 33 parts per million. And the daytime UV index is in the moderate range, but has now clicked one more notch lower at 4. So welcome October. And the angle of the sun is, as recorded, is sending less UV, but do take care anyway because reflective UV is just as bad. Let's see. Pressure is, or the barometer is at 29.83 inches and holding steady. Visibility is down to 5 miles. What am I doing? And humidity, and that would be relative humidity, is at 92%. Okay, well, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Oh my gosh, London is 58 and fair. That's pretty nice, actually, when you think about it. Paris is 61 and sunny. Rome is 74 and mostly cloudy. They do have another wind advisory today, so take care if you're in Rome. Kiev is 57 and fair. Kabul is 69 degrees and fair. Hong Kong is 76 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 70 degrees and clear. Sydney, Australia is 56 and clear. San Francisco, California is 59 degrees and cloudy. And New York is 69 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. First offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. River City Hash Mondays is brought to us from informed comment by Juan Cole. Now, did you know that South Carolina is women's murder capital? Yeah. And I wonder, does Lindsey Graham have anything to do with that? Why does he hate women so much? Why does Lindsey hate women so much that he would vote repeatedly against the Women's Against Violence Act? He doesn't believe women are subjected to violence, and they certainly shouldn't have special laws where they can go after the men. What's this guy's problem? Well, he's made it abundantly clear on the hearing on Thursday that he cares more about Republican Party control of the Supreme Court than about rape victims. So it could just really be nothing more than political expedience, because a lot of his constituency are wife beaters. And I don't mean the T-shirt. He implied that the charges of sexual assault that have surfaced against Kavanaugh are a Democratic Party plot to deny Trump a Supreme Court justice. I think he's saying, hey, we didn't level that charge against Merrick Garland. We just kept him off the court because, hey, we can. He angrily threatened to smear the next Democratic nominee in turn, like he hasn't already, with all the ones that came before. Graham's charge of conspiracy makes no sense, since the Democrats did not make Dr. Blasey Ford come forward, nor did they make the other three women come forward. And the Republican evangelicals are always attacking Muslim fundamentalism for not giving equal rights to women. Actually, modern Muslim states like Tunisia have women's equality in the Constitution, but it is true that some Muslim fundamentalists argue that a woman's testimony in court should be worth half that of a man. Well, here it'd be what? 7 cents on the dollar worth. Okay. Which makes convicting a man of rape almost impossible, ironically. The attitude of the Republican men on the Judiciary Committee is the same as would be that of a Muslim fundamentalist. They clearly believe that the testimony of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, a high-powered professor of psychiatry at Palo Alto and Stanford universities, counts for less than that of a preppy white elite male. Graham's tone deafness to rape victims is nothing new, because he has consistently voted against the Violence Against Women Act. Indeed, the Republican Congress is going to let it expire, and they did over the weekend, by the way. Ironically, this is the same weekend they're trying to shoehorn Kavanaugh onto the Supreme Court, and it continues right now. Nobody on cable news will tell you that, or make the connection. In Graham's worldview, the Democrats got their nominees whom he voted for, and they are being beastly to take this one away from Republicans. But he neglects to mention that what they did to Merrick Garland, and he unfairly blames the Democratic Party for Kavanaugh's behavior as a besotted youth. Well, Graham called the hearing, which merely allowed Kavanaugh's alleged victim to state her experience, the worst thing he had ever seen in his career in politics. Really? How about incarcerating thousands of babies in baby gulags? Oh, I know. Tender-age prisons. What's up with that, Lindsey? That's the worst thing you've seen? How about, I don't know, black sites to beat the crap out of people until they tell you what you want to hear? You would think that after South Carolina is a dangerous state with 501 violent crimes per 100,000 in population annually, is 35% higher than anywhere else in the U.S. Well, you would think being a senator and a lawmaker and elite and all, Graham could do something about the high rates of violence against women in his state. But he's kind of busy getting their rat fucker on the bench.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Adrienne Masha Varkiani of Think Progress brings us this last offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And you know, while you weren't looking, while we were all paying attention to all the other things that are going on, the incarceration, and I'll say the torture of children and babies continues. And these children, often awakened in the dead of night, are transported to encampments along the border, tent gulags. What the hell are we doing? And I'm looking at you, Kirsten Nielsen, lying that there was never an order to do this very thing, and your name is on it. In recent weeks, hundreds of migrant children across the country have been moved to a tent camp in South Texas every week. According to a report in the New York Times, more than 1,600 kids so far have been quietly moved to the camp. Well, that's more than just hundreds. I think that's like scores. Well, that's way more than scores. Well, before the move, the most undocumented children detained by immigration authorities were in private foster homes or shelters, where they were able to receive formal schooling and meet regularly with legal representatives. Well, the Times reports that in the tent city in Tornillo, children have limited access to legal representatives, and there is no formal schooling available, because the more you know, the more you know. Shelter workers said that the children are not given advance warning about the move and are often awakened in the middle of the night, loaded onto buses to Texas, because they are less likely to run away that way. Well, isn't that nice? There are an estimated 13,000 migrant kids currently in detention. More than 100 of them are separated from their families as part of the administration's policy of criminally prosecuting those across the border without documentation. Oh, you're a refugee trying to flee violence? You think it was bad where you come from? Wait until we put you through what we got for you. Experts say the number of unaccompanied migrant kids in detention skyrocketed, in part due to the new restrictions on how kids are placed with families. It is mostly older kids from the ages of 13 to 17 who are being transferred to Tornillo. The children being moved are likely to be released sooner and will spend less time there, the Times reported. Still, because sponsorship placements are often protracted, immigrant advocates say there is a possibility that many of the children could be living in the tent city for months, And I think that if there's money to be had, they'll be there for years. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But Networks Radio will broadcast on with all of that breaking news as it's breaking. Of course, we will visit with you tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. For real, it is Tuesday tomorrow. And so do stay tuned to Networks Radio for all the breaking news as it breaks. And then we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.